There's definitely a lot of new television shows that are out there right now. I know yesterday, I think that I saw one of the longest lines ever for the Game of Thrones panel. That's something you've been paying attention to at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Game of Thrones is, in a lot of ways, it's Lord of the Rings for the folks these days, because a lot of similarities. It's coming off of a very popular and very beloved, rich novel series that in a lot of ways seemed impossible to translate to the screen, which, as we know, was exactly what tripped up Lord of the Rings for a really long time. And much like how Peter Jackson knocked it out of the park with those films, these guys have knocked it out of the park by really making some very smart choices and giving the people what they want. So the translation's been really phenomenal, and they've got a stellar cast.
And excellent. I know that they talked about, probably by the time we get to the third season, if the show makes it to the third season, which I'm sure it will, that it might start diverging from the books. I mean, do you think that's a good move, bad move?
That's always a tough one. I think right now everybody's really happy with where they're going, but the great thing is they're going to have the opportunity to build trust with that audience, and so ultimately if the audience trusts them for 2 seasons because of all the good work they're doing, then I bet you if by season 3 they want to diverge a little bit, they're actually going to have that freedom to do so because the audience will support them in that.
And also it might help too, where I guess we don't have to worry about people who might be fans of the book or who know how to look up stuff on Wikipedia, where they probably won't get spoiled about what's to come as well, because if you have enough difference there, because a lot of TV shows do, Dexter, some of those that actually are based on novels or stories or whatever, diverge from that a lot. So I guess that you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to have your own thing at some point.
Yeah, at a certain point when you're dealing with the property and you translate it to TV, you probably do want to give it its own spin. I think a good example of that would be Smallville. They had the basics, right? You've got Clark Kent, you've got Smallville, you've got his parents, you've got him growing up, but everything in between then began to shift a little bit from what we knew in the book and become its own unique thing. So it's entirely possible for Game of Thrones to do that if they do it right. Otherwise, they should change their names and go in hiding.
Well, Torchwood came back finally after a 2-year absence, and it's on Starz right now. It seems like it's almost a mixed bag depending on who you talk to. I know that existing fans seem like it's like, for me, for instance, I'm having a hard time following up with, Children of Earth, because that was just such an amazing 5 episodes. And so now we have to kind of get back into the groove of this again, but also be patient while everything's explained to new audiences. I mean, do you think that this season is able to pick up where left off? I know viewership's dropping, but
Torchwood's had a really challenging time from the get-go. They were trying to do something different, and they were actually succeeding, but because they were doing something different, it was taking a while to build an audience, so they began to try different things. And Children of Earth was phenomenal. That was brilliant, but it was also, in a sense, almost painting them into a corner. It was bad enough in season 2 that we lost 2 characters that we really, really liked, or loved even, and then they stuck the knife in and twisted it again, because all you have to do is look at the internet and see how people feel about Yonto not being around. Because ultimately I think a lot of people felt that Torchwood really was that ensemble. I think Captain Jack's great, I think Gwen's great, but they need a few more people to play with. So they're building another ensemble, which is great. I think they've got some really interesting people in the mix there. Love Mekhi Phifer, I think he's really cool. But yeah, you're right, it is tough to follow that up. Right now I'm just on the fence, because Torchwood was kind of quintessentially British in a lot of ways when it comes to sci-fi, and they're able to do a lot more interesting things, I think, on that side of the pond, because American sci-fi tends to be very straightforward, and it can either get really heavy or really deep. They don't quite get the whimsy that the British can get away with. I mean, that was one of the things that was Torchwood's specialty. It could get really dark and really goofy within like the span of a couple minutes. So you can see they're experimenting with that with Miracle Day. Still early days. It's a longer series, because also it's a different pacing. I think because we've just come off of you know, Children of Earth not too long ago, and a lot of people rewatched it right before this started. That was an entirely different pacing because of the way that thing was being rolled out. This is more of a marathon than a sprint, as Children of Earth was. So I think that's where people are having a hard time kind of getting into it right now. I am having some difficulties, but I'm going to stick with it because I really do like the characters, and I would like to see the series around.
Excellent. And I don't know, every year I seem like I get up and we get toward the end of the television season and see the ratings of how network genre shows are doing, and you almost want to start declaring the death of, you know, genre shows on networks. But yet then we turn around and some shows, you know, we didn't expect get renewed, and like Fringe, for instance, then we get a whole slate of new shows. I mean, what do you think about the staying power of this genre, that even though it keeps stumbling, it seems like every step of the way? Last year was a horrible year for genre shows, you know, in terms of ratings, but I mean, the networks aren't giving up.
They're not, because ultimately the networks understand that there is an audience for genre shows, that it is possible to get them, right? So we're here at Comic-Con, we've got over 100,000 people showing up here. A lot of those genre shows are in their wheelhouse, right? And ultimately, these are going to be the people that are going to be the most passionate supporters of a show. I think sometimes that's the challenge for more kind of like conventional shows on network. The genre shows can sometimes be polarizing, but if you get the mix right, there's a huge return on your investment there, because it can last for years. I mean, look at something like Firefly. That was hardly around, and yet it's a cottage industry now. I mean, there's a new Firefly ship here on the show floor. There's 2 of them actually, all kinds of great artwork, and that cast is still beloved, and that was 1 season. So if you do it right, a genre show can really pay off. I mean, look at Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You know?
Very true. And you know, and I don't know how much you've seen of some of the new slate that's coming out, but what do you think that fans should be looking forward to this season?
You know, as a comic person and a sci-fi person, I was very pleasantly surprised with Alphas on Sci-Fi. It was really good because it's clearly being written by people that get it. I think the death of genre shows sometimes is when you have people that don't really understand kind of what's cool and what's interesting. Honestly, that was one of the problems with Heroes. It was all over the map.
Yeah.
And it's like, the things that they found interesting were, but they didn't know where to develop them in a way to make them interesting to our crowd. So we kind of stuck with it for a while, but it just kind of, when it became clear they didn't know what they were doing, we all left in droves, as you saw. But Alphas right now, really sharp writing, great cast, and a very interesting concept. So I think that's a really cool one. Obviously Game of Thrones, Walking Dead. I'm gonna say Torchwood, even though I'm on the fence, because I think there's some potential there. What was Doctor Who, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, they're having kind of a rough time right now. The season's been up and down, and now we have this huge gap. But I'm gonna hold out hope that they're gonna pull it together. I have faith in Stephen Moffat. I think Matt Smith has nailed a unique version of the Doctor that's very lovable and relatable, if the scripts don't always hold up. And so I'm holding out hope that it's gonna get back to its glory.